All right, so now we are going to discuss text. Text is something that's definitely needed in your engineering or architectural plans. This is a form of communication that is required in a lot of things that require further explanation other than picture and dimensions. So it's rightfully so that AutoCAD provides a space for that. Now, make sure you are in your text layer. And when you switch over into your text layer, if that's hard to see, you can change your layers afterwards. I'm going to select object line because the text layers is pretty dark. And so I'm going to go to object line and I'm going to change all my layers afterwards. I'm going to show you something called match properties. So it'll match the properties of a particular layer and it'll make life a whole lot easier. And so, yes. So there is single line text that you can use. So type in the word text, space bar. It'll ask you to specify a starting point. You can specify a starting point using Cartesian coordinate systems, but the rest of the world just plops stuff down. You can specify a text height. Now, I told you that there are CAD standards. Text is no different. There's particular standards for titles. There's particular standards for your average text calling something out. And your firms might have their own little things that they do with their text, and that creates a style that makes them unique to that firm. But I'm just going to go ahead and use 1/4 inch, and you can see right there in the command line down here that it's already at 1/4 inch. Hit OK. You can specify a particular angle. I don't mess with it, just 0, and then type in. And I use cap locks, and most of architecture uses cap locks, and so this is where you type stuff. You can hit enter and it will drop you down, much like in a Word document when you're using Microsoft Word, and you can continue, if I can spell it right, to type other stuff. Now you can justify this however you want. However, within the command, you have to tell it you're going to justify it a particular way before you start typing, and we'll get into that. But this is the preview. So once you're done, you just click out of it, hit escape, and you're out of that command. And if you can see that it dropped each line in its own single line entity. Now, oops, I forgot a period. I need to jump back in here, double click, and move your cursor all the way over to the end, and you can edit. If you notice down here, I'm in the text edit command. You can type text edit down here, or I just say double click because it's so much faster. And then it'll select the whole thing, but I don't want the whole thing selected. I just want to add the periods, the punctuation, and I'm done. I'm still in the text edit command. I want to get out of it, spacebar, good to go. Then there's the multi-text. This is the one that I use very often, and it's just simply the letter T, spacebar, and you can specify how big you want a text box to appear. This is essentially the sheet of paper that you're going to be typing on. So you can specify this to be any size. You can adjust it afterwards to any size. And if you notice, after I clicked that text box, it still kind of just went to this single line. And that's okay, because you can type more stuff. and you can create these lines. And if you notice up here, this is kind of like a very similar to Word, where you have, you know, your left justification, your center justification, your right justification, justified, your line spacing. You can add bullets and numbering. You can change your font to, you know, any one of these fonts. When you do get into your own firms, they're going to have particular fonts that then sizes they want to use. But you know, this is just to give you an idea of what can be done. You can create columns, add symbols, so on and so forth. When you're done and you want to change the font size, you can change the font size right here. You can just type it in. I would highlight everything first. If you want it the text height 2 inches, type in 2 inches. That's pretty aggressive, and so I'm just going to go back to 1/4 inch and leave it at that. And okay, and if you're satisfied with the way this looks, but you need to move it somewhere else, you can use the move command and move this entire text. So M, select the object, which in this case is all these letters that make up these sentences, and spacebar again, and I can move it wherever I want. And left click, and if I want to move it again, and I typically like to select where, you know, AutoCAD doesn't want to automatically snap into certain spots. And so there you go. So this is exercise 8A, inch. This is the imperial system that we're going to be using. And so one of the first texts that you have to put in is text exercise. And the instructions saying use justified center, and it's asking you to type in a particular location and height. So we're going to use the single text command, single line text. So type in the word text, spacebar, and if you notice down here, it says justify. That's what they're referring to as justify. So hit the letter J, space, and it's saying justify center. So you can go right here, click center, and we're going to specify a point. We're going to enter in the location 5.5, comma 7.75, enter. And the text height, we got to specify the text height at 0.5. The rotation is 0. We don't want to rotate the text to 0. Or we want to rotate the text. We don't want to rotate the text at all. It needs to stay at 0. And so all caps, text exercise. And just click out of it, and there you have it. Now I'm going to move down to the text that is right below it to the left. The text is justified left, the starting point, and it's pretty much the same command. Text, oops, let me get out of the command. Text, command, all right, justify, J, left, and the starting point is 0.75, comma 7, enter, and the height, text height is 0.13, enter, rotation angle 0, and then just type justified left, And I misspelled justified. That is unjustified. There we go. Right? And so it wants you to start another sentence below this. All you have to do is hit enter. And it wants me to type the start point is 0.75, comma 7. Drop another sentence. The text height is 0.13. Click out of that, hit escape, and you're out of the command. Anytime you see these crosshairs in the middle of this, your cursor, this means you're out of a command. So I went ahead and typed in the justified right. It's pretty much the same process as the justified left. You type in the text command. While you're in the text command, hit the justified spacebar, and then choose the justified right and enter your endpoints and text height. Now I'm going to use the justified align. So I'm going to get into the text command, spacebar, justified align, and I'm going to enter the first endpoint, 0.75, comma 5.5. Spacebar. Second endpoint is 9.7, comma 0. Enter. Now, when you go to type in your text, it's asking me to type in use justified align for this text. You'll notice that it is enormous. What the align does, it adjusts to the parameters that you set, and so it will, as you type letters, it will shrink, and you'll notice that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and type in use justified, or justify align for this text, period, first endpoint is 0.75, comma 5.5. And you notice how it started way huge and now it looks like a normal size. The second endpoint is 9.7, comma 0. Get over here and spell endpoint right, and good to go. So I hit escape, and now I'm out of that, and it's justified from both the sides, and everything in that sentence fits in here. And if you notice how I spelled something wrong, and I knew I spelled something wrong because there was a little red line underneath, and you know, much like Word, using Microsoft Word, it'll indicate that you have a particular spelling error. But it doesn't account for grammatical errors, so it's not quite that fancy. If you have grammatical issues, I suggest if you're typing something long, type it in Word, and you can copy it from Word and paste it onto here. All right. So now I want to go move down, use the justify fit. So text space justify fit. So I'm gonna hit the letter F, and you know how I started spelling it and it automatically chose, you know, where I wanted to go instead of having to go down here. I could just hit the letter F, enter, and now I'm in justified fit. And the first endpoint is 1,4. So I'm gonna hit the space bar because that's my first endpoint. And my second endpoint is 4,0. And my text height is 0.13. And now I can start typing. So use justify fit for this text. It's asking me to use another sentence line for this. So first, end, point. Looks like they're using shorthand. 1, 4, second, end. Is 4, 0. Using another line. The height is 0.13. Press and enter after each sentence. Then the text will justify. And now I'm done. And I'm going to go down and do another part of this assignment. So text, where it says fit this text, I'm going to do that, and it's supposed to be right around here. So I'm going to use justify, fit, type in the first endpoint as 1, 0.5, and the second endpoint at 4, 0. Text height is 1. And now I'm going to type in fit this text. And that is done. And so now I'm going to use this other text. Let me escape out of that to do this text that has been rotated. Sometimes you can use this. I hardly ever use it, but if you want to learn how to use it, definitely do this. So I'm going to use the text command and justify, and I'm going to justify left, so I can type in L, spacebar. My start point, my first start point is at, actually my start point is at 6.7, 0.7, comma, 1.2. Spacebar, height is at 0.2, and the rotation is at 45. And so now when I go to type, use justify left for this text, and enter, just start text at 6.7, comma, 1.2, and height is 0.2, and rotation is 45. So that is done. Okay, so if you notice, you click on here, if you right click and go to properties, a properties menu will come up. Mine was already up. In fact, let me close it off so you can see exactly what I mean by that. And so I'm going to go ahead and select this, right click, go to properties, and bam, it pops up. Text height, I can adjust this here to whatever I want. If I want it 0.5, it'll adjust to 0.5. But if I want it back to or a quarter of an inch, I do 0.25, and bam, it's right there. And rotation, I could change the rotation to whatever I want. I can even change the contents of what has been written within this line if I wanted to. You can do some of that here. But you'll notice the positions that we've entered are right here. And if you know the positions, that's fine. But I would, if I needed to do this, I would, you can use the rotate command, to rotate at 45 degrees. You can also use the move command to move things where you want them to. You can use those commands without having to use, the coordinates. Okay, I just realized that this is all in the wrong layer. This is on the object line layer. So what I want to do is I want to change this to the text layer. But I also want to show you match properties. This is a good one. So match properties will match the properties of anything, and you can select and it will match the properties of whatever this text is. This is kind of useful if you're not dealing with text in different sizes, but if you're dealing with lines and they need to be on a particular layer, and let's just say this needs to be on the roof layer, and this is still part of the roof, you can go to Match Properties, click here, click there, and now they're both on the roof layer. And so that's Match Properties. That's pretty useful if you forget to put things on a particular layer. Match Properties is right there, and make your life easy. Right, so lastly, I'm going to need to put a circle right here with the number 22. So how to do that is to start to draw a circle first and hit enter. And now we're going to specify a center point using the coordinates. So 6.75, comma, 3.75, spacebar. And now we're going to specify the radius, which is 0.75, enter. And now what we're going to do is place the number 22 right here in the middle. We're going to use the same coordinates. So we're going to use the text, and it's going to be 6.75, comma, 3.75. Text height is at 0.5. Forgot to justify in the middle. So go back, escape, text, sorry about that. Justify, middle, M for middle, spacebar. Now I got to put in the coordinates. So 6.75, comma, 3.75, and spacebar. The text height is at 0.5, and let's see, angle of rotation, you can see right here it's at 45. It remembered what we did last time, so we need to set it back to 0. Now it's at 0. Type in 22, call it a day, control save, control S for save, and done. That is assignment 8A. I realized when I ended the video I didn't change the layer. It was on the object line, so make sure you change the layered back to text before you submit, and that's it.